Hey, good evening, good evening, good evening. I want to welcome you guys back to the Conversation 98, and I'm so excited, so happy, so glad to be back on here. I look forward to tonight's conversation and Happy New Year, man. First episode of the new year in 2024, going strong, and I'm just happy to be back here and happy to be on again and looking forward to the conversation tonight. Man, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope all is well with everybody. I hope your new year is going good and hey, my prayer is that whatever plans that you have, whatever plans you have for this year, that everything works out for you. But I'm looking forward to 2024. Looking forward to the new year, some new challenges, new things going on, and I'm just looking forward to just to have a good year. So no complaints from me, but I'm definitely looking forward to the conversation tonight. Really excited about it. I usually don't. Sending this to a few people, and I usually don't myself. Usually don't have. Honestly, I cannot recall, and I think this will be my quote unquote first relationship based discussion, a topic that I talk about, but won't be on long. But I think it's going to be a real good one because actually a friend of mine and a friend gave me a recommendation, and when the friend told me, and I was like, dang, you know what? That's perfect. That's perfect. So tonight, man, we're gonna get on to it, get on with it, and looking forward to it. How you doing, Shirley Shepherd? Good evening to you. Good evening. Good evening to you. So we're gonna get right on into this, man, and we're not even gonna hold back. But tonight we're gonna talk about learn to be honest with yourself, to know yourself before getting in a relationship with somebody or with someone. And I think that is so important. It's so important to you should know yourself or spend time or be committed to getting to know yourself. And I know that that's something that can be hard because a lot of times we know things about ourselves, but we don't. I don't think that we take the time to get to know ourselves, like really get to know who we are as a person. And then many of us, we like desire to be in a relationship with somebody. But when you start talking about long-term relationships, and this is what I'm speaking about, long-term, I'm not talking about that puppy love stuff. I'm talking about long-term relationships. When you're talking about long-term relationships, right? You have to learn to be honest with yourself. And you got to be honest with yourself so you can know yourself before you try to align yourself with somebody else. Because if you don't, it can lead to a lot of heartache and pain. It can lead to a lot of heartache and pain. Hey Sheila, how you doing? How you doing? Good to see you. Joyce Jones, how you doing? Hello to you. But yeah, man, we got to be honest with ourselves and learn to be honest with ourselves on that. And I think one of the problems is, if we really be honest, one of the big problems we have when we talking about being honest with ourselves or getting to know ourselves, especially when we talk about getting ready for relationships, is we have to get to the reality that we lie to ourselves more than we lie to anybody. We lie to ourselves. We make excuses for our behavior. I mean, what I mean by that, we know that we got some toxic ways. We know we have, and a lot of times we try to mask our dysfunctions, but we try to justify our ways because of something, and we don't realize we don't deal with that. If it's not healthy for us, and the only way we can get around it is we lying to ourselves or being dishonest with ourselves about it. How do you think it's going to be when you talk about aligning with yourself with somebody for a long time, for a long-term relationship? It's going to rear its head and it's going to become a problem. And the reason why it's going to become a problem is because you can't run from yourself. So why you try to run from yourself but still want somebody to accept you when you running from your own self? That doesn't even sound right. That doesn't sound right at all. As a matter of fact, it leads to a lot of heartache and pain. And the other thing is, and we also have to be honest about ourselves, but somebody else shouldn't have to tell you about you. There's a difference between somebody identifying some things with you, especially if you're in a relationship. The person that you're closest with, will be able to see some things about you and can bring those things to you. But the person that's closer to you shouldn't tell you that you're a bad person. They shouldn't have to tell you that. They shouldn't have to tell you about your shortfalls. You should invest time, energy, and effort to learning about the things that you have shortcomings with. But the problem is many people, what they do in relationships is they will get into a relationships knowing that they have shortfalls, but then get upset with their significant other because they call them out on it or hold them accountable to it. But because they don't want to deal with it, they get upset with them, and now they feel like they start to try to attack them. They're not attacking you, they just telling you the truth about who you are. And you just need to be honest, because they shouldn't have to tell you who you are. You should be open to changing. And I'm not talking about you changing who you are as a person. That's not what I'm talking about. That is not what I'm talking about. Right? What I am talking about is you should be willing to change the things about you that are unhealthy for the relationship. And this is what I mean by unhealthy for the relationship. Listen, it can be okay for you because you just, a lot of things we are okay by ourselves because we just learn to just tolerate or deal with ourselves on things, or we just don't even want to address it. But if I'm aligning myself with somebody in a long-term relationship, I need to be cognitive of there are some things about me that I'm going to have to be willing to change for the betterment of the relationship. I'm not talking about you changing who you are as a person. I'm talking about there are going to be some things that you just need to look at and take inventory and be like, hey, bro, I got some ways I need to deal with. And then be open to when you're in a relationship with somebody, right? Before you get in a relationship, you should be mature and work to a level of maturity where you can handle adult and mature things, because it's going to force you to grow. It's going to force you to grow. One thing about it, if you think about it, it's not only is going to force you to grow, right? But you just, not only is going to force you to grow, but in relationships show you. It definitely show you. Because, and you're not going to find out just how selfish you are until you get into a committed relationship. You're not going to find out how selfish you really are until you marry, right? And I'm talking about a committed relationship, not this, I got a way out, those type of relationships. I'm talking about a committed relationship. And that force you to realize you got to consider somebody else. And one of the reasons why people say relationships are hard is because you have to consider somebody else. So you should get to know yourself pretty good. Not going into these relationships trying to highlight what your strengths are. No, you should work on and be honest with yourself to identify where your weaknesses are, where your challenges are. Because in those weaknesses and challenges, that's where a lot of the friction is going to come from in a relationship. And then stop being so done defensive when somebody brings something to you that is bothering them in a relationship. And it ain't a good attribute about yourself. Don't be defensive. Be open. Be open. And I would tell you, this is no trying to act like a relationship guru. No, what I'm talking about is personal accountability, and you dealing with yourself, the YO self, not yourself, but yourself, because it's so important for you to learn to deal with you, because the truth is, and I know this is gonna upset a lot of people, but a lot of people are excited about the status of being in a relationship, but not committed about doing the work to sustain that relationship. Like a lot of people excited about the title of being married or the title of being a wife or being a husband, but not willing to do the work to embody the very role that they are excited to be or to hold, the title that they hold, because it takes work. It takes work. And one of the things that I say, learning about you're not going to know how selfish you are, is because that's going to cause you, when you're in committed relationships, it's going to cause you, right, to give up yourself in ways that you aren't going to be willing to give in those moments. It's going to cost you that. So the best thing to do is to realize that, hey, I'm going to have to give up some of my things, some of myself, not lose who I am, but give up some of myself for the betterment of the relationship. Because if I'm always about me, then I'm always taken from the other person. And the reality is, we just had to get to that space. We got to get to that space. We should get to that space, should get to that point to where we understand what we have. But many of us need to get an understanding and identify if you are a giver or a taker in a relationship. And the problem is many people that are takers, they lie and convince themselves that they are givers. But what they don't realize is they are always in situations where it's more the favor of it's favorable to them in the situation. They benefit more from the situation. They are unwilling to be and put themselves in the position to where they feel like they aren't benefiting the most from. And when you connect with somebody like that, especially if you are a taker and you are not honest with yourself about identifying that you're a taker and getting to why you are a taker, you will eventually erode and destroy that relationship. You will eventually erode and destroy that relationship. And the sad truth is, a lot of people don't even want to acknowledge that and accept that fact. But you should be the one to identify that, not go into the relationship hoping somebody else will. We got some comments here. Joyce Jones says, true. And Miss Geraldine, how you doing? She said, hi, son. Hey, teacher, how you doing? Yes, but realizing that, right? And that aspect, I'm speaking from, I'm clearly speaking from from a position of self personal accountability, because these are the impacts of it, right? We love to put our best foot forward when we go into relationships. Many of us, we do that. We put our best foot forward. We are many of us are attentive to the other person. We are all of these things, right? And then the quote unquote honeymoon phase roll out, and then now people who have in a lot of ways been tricked to be into a long-term relationship with you, now the real you come out, and they looking at you like, dang, where this person been? But then you don't want to be honest with yourself because you still probably convince yourself that you still the person that it was at the beginning, but you're not. And when you're talking about getting into a relationship, you cannot be selfish to have a successful and healthy relationship. You cannot be selfish. You got to kill that. You got to deal with that. You got to be honest with that on a daily basis. You got to look at it. And listen, I'm not talking about subjecting yourself to abuse and all that thing. But a lot of times we feel like stuff is done to us that it ain't really done to us. We just selfish. We just selfish and we want our way. That's what it really boils down to. And if we, and I mean, that's what it really boils down to. You know, a lot of things and it's funny. It's funny. It is funny, but it's also sad. It's funny, but it's sad. A lot of people will in turns play the role of a victim, quote unquote, in relationships, and they try to play it like they are the victim, but they aren't even taking accountability of their unwillingness to meet the needs of the person they're in the relationship with. Right. And they would turn it around and try to make it like it's a respect thing, like they're being disrespected because they're not getting what they want, but they're not willing to give the other person anything. And they will make it conditional in that relationship. They will make it conditional in that relationship to be like, well, because you didn't give me what I want, then that justifies me not giving to you. And that's why I said, before you go into a relationship, you need to get to a space where you realize that sometimes in that relationship, you ain't gonna get what you want. Sometimes you're gonna be disappointed. Sometimes you're gonna have to give to the other person when you don't feel like it. But if you are both committed to the best for the relationship, it will all work itself out in the end. It will all work itself out in the end. But the problem is, most of us, the problem is most of us want it our way. And we're committed to playing the role of the victim just so we can get it our way, right? And we don't even understand the impact. So many people been together or been in committed relationship with people who one person just have made their mind up to not give the other person anything. And that person is in a relationship. You may be in a relationship where you feel like this person is straight up pull a magic trick on you. It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's like you got with Dr. Jekyll, but Mr. Hyde is the one in the relationship. And then when you're telling them that, or you expressing to them about their consistent behavior, they want to get upset with you and act as if you are the one causing them to be Mr. Hyde. No, you're not causing them to be nothing. The person is who they are at the beginning, and they don't want to face the reality of who they are. And I would tell you, if you find yourself in those and that person is continuing uncommitted to address themselves, it may be time to remove yourself. It may be time to remove yourself, because those people will eventually continue to erode and pull from you and just take until they suck the life out of you and will move on and could care less about you and the state that they left you in. Because it's not, and this is the thing, it's not even about you so much. It's more about them. It's not about you so much, it's more about them. And the reason why I say it's more about them is because of the simple fact is they can't even, a lot of times they can't even see or even acknowledge that they are the one that is doing this. And that is not saying that you are perfect, that you don't have no wrongs and no shortcomings. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I want you talking about that, and I'm talking about, a lot of people. And we got a lot of stuff out there, us versus them, and who's the problem, and the man versus women, and all of that. Listen, I ain't contributing to none of that. I'm not contributing to none of that. My whole position is from the individual perspective, individual accountability, because individual accountability is the key to success when you're talking about having success in a long-term relationship. Individual accountability. You have to be accountable for yourself, because if you make it conditional based off of the acts of the other person, the problem is you will always find yourself feeling like you justified, your behavior is justified by but what they're not doing, but then you will never take accountability for your behavior and what you're not doing for them. So if you always in a perpetual state to where both of y'all feeling y'all justified not to do what you originally came into the relationship, and most of the time when you come into the relationship, everybody was doing it and was willing, but now it boils down to you being unwilling. That's why I said individual accountability is the key to success if you're talking about being ready to go into a long-term relationship with somebody. Individual accountability. Individual. And not, because it's so easy, man. And a lot of people don't think about it, but if you sit down and think about it, right? It's so easy for me to find fault in somebody in a relationship. It's so easy for me to find fault in somebody else in an attempt to try to justify my inactions. A lot of times what we do is we try to find fault in somebody else to justify our unwillingness. We're trying to find fault in somebody else to justify our unwillingness to do what we know we should be doing for the other person. But, oh, they ain't take the trash out, so this what it is. Oh, they ain't do this, so this what it is. No, that's you. You just you just don't want to do it. Don't try to use what they don't do or what they're not doing, what you want them to do as a reason to justify your unwillingness to do something for them. Because I would tell you, if you're going to be in a long-term committed relationship, it's going to cause you to have to do some stuff you ain't going to want to do. And you should be up for the task because you said you wanted it. You the one said you wanted it, right? And it's funny. It's so funny. It's so funny. And people may agree with me, some may disagree with me, but at the end of the day, honestly, don't care. But one of the funny things when you talk about it, people are committed to be with their kids. They're committed to love their kids unconditionally. They're committed to be in an unconditional, committed to give to their kids unconditionally, despite how their kids treat them, how their behavior are towards them, what they do for them. But then when it comes to them being in a relationship with somebody, then now we got all of these different conditions. Now, I'm not saying that your spouse is the same as your child. What I'm talking about is when it comes to your kid, you're very forgiving. You're very, you have the tolerance for it. But when it comes to your significant other, if you're in a relationship, why we don't have that same level of tolerance? And it's all boils down to a choice, a decision. You choose to be there for your kids, but we get upset, and rightfully so, because emotions get in place. But being mature about it and individual accountability, sometimes we just got to grow up. Sometimes we got to grow up. I'm telling you, a lot of people are going to their graves right now, right? And will have to give an account to God for their behavior, and they feeling like they're right because they feel like they are justified. But you can justify anything, and that's the scariest thing about it. That's one of the scariest things that don't nobody want to acknowledge. But when we want to find something wrong, we can find justification for that wrong in any way, and it's so easy to do. It's so easy to do. And we do it in relationships so quickly. And many of us don't even realize, and we don't want to be honest with ourselves before we even get into relationships, that like, dang, I'm a selfish person. Dang, things always got to be my way. That's why it's so important to be honest with yourself. Hey, why do they have to be your way? Right? Why are you selfish? And really work on that. Because now you bring that into a relationship with somebody else and you expect them to be the one to adjust and cater to that. No, you're going to eventually destroy that relationship, and you'll find yourself going from relationship to relationship to relationship and being the same problem, but you will always blame other people. But other people aren't responsible for whatever you bring in, the baggage that you bring. You have to know what baggage you bring. Listen, you should know. Like I said, you should know what baggage you bring into a relationship. You should know what's in that bag, what's in that luggage, because you packed it. And if somebody else calls you to carry some in that luggage, you, at the end of the day, you are the one carrying it around. So even though you may not have put it in there, what you at least you could do, the least that you could do is you could know what's in there, know the inventory of what's in there, and be willing to open it up and address it instead of carrying it around and expect everybody else to help you carry that for the rest of your life and relationship. Right? So that's why it's so important. So I hope this was helpful to somebody. I hope this was helpful. Appreciate my friend for giving me the inspiration for this topic. But you have to learn to be honest with yourself. Learn to be honest with yourself before you get in a relationship. I'm telling you, we talking about relationship. Relationship is about people, human relations, right? It's about being there. Like, because nobody wants to be in a relationship with somebody that they don't benefit from. And the problem is, many people, the reason why a lot of people don't want to be honest with themselves, because they don't want to be honest with the fact that they're selfish, or they're takers, or they just want it to be about them, right? And they don't care about it being mutually beneficial, long as they get the upper hand. Because when it calls them to do things in a relationship that cause them to be accountable, they will always try to find reason to justify their unwillingness to do for the other person. Because the same willingness that you see them do the same thing for other people, right? You see them willingly do things for other people that they will unwillingly do for you, but they benefit from being in a relationship with you, right? But if you ask them, they will convince themselves that they're not benefiting from a relationship. They will do that just to justify to themselves that they are justified for not doing that for you. And the sad truth is, a lot of people live through that every day. Live through that. And it's all because they don't want to be personally accountable for themselves in those relationships. Because there has to be a individual accountability, and then there has to be accountability to the other person in the relationship. It has to be. My mom said that. She said, we are all selfish. However, when we choose to love in a relationship, we learn to tame selfish. Twain selfish. It's a choice. And this is the thing. I want us to understand this, right? Right? I want us to really understand this, because this ain't something that I'm just saying, but the reality is we are all selfish as people. We are all selfish. And guess what? We don't even have to try. We don't have to try about that at all. And first, let's acknowledge that, right? Let's acknowledge that we are all selfish. So if I'm talking about learning to be honest with myself before I get into a relationship with somebody else, I have to acknowledge the fact that I am selfish. Now we should take inventory of how selfish I am, and then what's the root cause of my selfishness. There's a difference between me looking out for self and always have that perspective of me looking out for self, and things always happen to be my way. Because see, you can be selfish and then you can desire control. And a lot of times that desire for control is rooted in somebody's trauma. And now we go into relationships, and now we end up putting that on somebody else and expecting somebody else to cater to our insecurities. No, we the ones that's selfish. We should deal with that. We should address it, right? Don't put that on other people. That's not other people's responsibility. That's not other people's responsibility. It is our responsibility. And once we know that, man, I'm telling you, it's so helpful for you to once you not only acknowledge it and be cognitive of it, right? That's when you can like start to really deal with it openly, and it helps you get to a space to where not only you can acknowledge that you're selfish and you have some selfish tendencies, so now you can put measures in place to help you, help you see you. Because the reality is, the person that you're closest to will always see the truest version of who you are. The person that you're closest to will always see the truest version of who you are. And the sad truth is, stop getting mad when they showing you. Stop getting defensive when they are communicating to you who you are. Because a lot of times, because we lie to ourselves so much, the person that's closest to us, when they are showing us who we really are, just be open to receive the reality of what they're telling you. Because a lot of times we take offense to it and we get offended by it, but they're just really telling you the reality of what they got to deal with you. So don't sit there and try to get defensive and get in your feelings. Open your ears and open your heart to see what they're telling you, because they are the ones suffering from it, not you. And I hope, man, I hope that in that, if we can take something and learn something from this, right? The people closest to you should not have to endure or survive being around you, right? And I said this. I used it from a leadership perspective, but I feel like it's a powerful thing to say now. And people should experience you, not survive you. If somebody been in any type of relationship with you, professional, personal, church, organizations, any type of relationship, they should feel like they experienced you instead of survived you. And a lot of people have survived you. And the reality is, we have convinced ourselves that they have experienced us. But if we are mature to a place and we want to take personal accountability, and we go to those people and we be open and honest, they would tell us about how we are. But the fact is, other people should not be the first ones to tell you who you are. And the reason why many of us get offended by what they tell us is because we know for a fact that what they telling us is true, but we have committed ourselves to dismissing it and lying to ourselves about it. And I just hope that we are better with that. My prayer is that this was helpful for anybody. And amen. 2024. This is the first episode of 2024, episode 165. Hey, go check me out on all these social media platforms. Hey, go follow me on YouTube at The Conversation 98. Go subscribe and follow me on there and all the other platforms that we have here. I appreciate you guys. Hopefully this was helpful, and looking forward to a weekly dialogue, because the Conversation 98 is just a platform where we want to talk about relevant topics that I feel that not a lot of people are talking about, but talking about it from a logical perspective and a Christian perspective. You guys have a great and wonderful day. Stay warm because it's cold up here. It's supposed to get some snow, but hey, we ready. God bless.